Welcome to the More Demand podcast, where we help you generate more demand for your products and services. Every episode we give you tips, tricks and tutorials on how to get the best out of your digital marketing. Less frustration, more demand. Here's your host Lawrence Howlett with this week's freshest tips.
Hello and welcome to the More Demand podcast, episode number 32. This week I have with me Kyle Lacy. He is obsessed with how technology influences and ultimately changes human behaviour. He's been the Director of Global Content Marketing at SalesForce, and now he heads up the team at OpenView and is Head of Marketing there. I'm going to talk with Kyle today all about content marketing and how continuous improvement will ensure your business's future success. We're going to talk about scrum management in marketing. We're going to talk about the death of the ebook. We're even going to talk about how drinking beer at the right time will help build better marketing campaigns. I'm going to welcome Kyle onto the show now. So here he is, Kyle Lacy, the Head of Marketing from OpenView. Hi, Kyle. Welcome to the More Demand podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I wanted to talk to you today about why people must embrace continuous rapid improvement, or as your blog post said, or slowly die. So talk to me a little bit about what is continuous rapid improvement.
Well, I think that the idea is very much based in the rate of change that we're experiencing today in business, especially because of technology. And in the world of software, which I am in, and I've been in for the past 10 to 12 years, you have to continuously change in order to survive. And I think the idea is if you're not constantly changing, you are slowly dying in terms of a business. So when we're talking about continuous rapid improvement, it's very much the idea that in the past, you've been able to do goals on a quarterly or yearly basis as a business, and you could say, hey, by the end of fiscal year 2016, we want to have $3 million in revenue and blah, 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 all these things, right? The idea, though, is that you should be changing those things on a weekly or monthly basis because the world changes so fast. You can't set a goal at the end of the year and expect that goal to be relevant. And, you know, it changes depending on what industry you're in, of course. But in my world in software, it changes on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, just even managing that approach of saying, well, you know, all my goals are changing weekly. I mean, that's just mind-blowing to try and think of, building that out. You know, what does that look like in terms of, your activities to help manage that process?
Well, I think it's important to note that you are adjusting goals up, not down. It does so. You're always adjusting up. You don't look at the goal you made a month ago and be like, well, I need to do less, right? The whole idea of continuous rapid improvement is improvement, right? So we embrace Agile and Scrum methodology within OpenView, as well as we encourage our portfolio companies to do as well. Everybody that joins OpenView as an employee has to go through and become a Scrum master. So that idea of Agile is constantly looking at a daily and weekly basis of things that we should be doing as a team. So we have high-arching firm goals, which are yearly goals. We have quarterly goals, and then we have monthly and weekly goals. And it's more of like a funnel. Maybe you're flipping the funnel, right? You have all of these really small goals that then go down to the firm goal. So when we're thinking about SMART goals, all of the little goals that we're doing weekly are numbers driven that then lead to a much larger SMART goal for the year. And the goals that are changing are the ones that are those weekly and monthly goals. For example, if I need to get 7,000 net new leads for a business, or 500 new prospect companies, and I realize that after a week into it that we're going to be doing 700 new prospects, or maybe we had a target prospect list that was wrong, I'm adjusting that goal to say, you know what, by the end of the month, we need to have 800. Because the world changes so fast. And I know that's a lot to take in, but that's kind of the idea, is that you have a bunch of SMART goals that then lead to a main goal that's connected to a target.
Yeah, it's a great way of organising. As you said, you use the Agile and the Scrum methodology. So just talk to us a little bit about, for those that are not up to speed with what Scrum is, just talk us through that.
Yeah, so Scrum is pretty much based in a lot of engineering and product development. It's based in that world. It's kind of like, I use Kaizen as a way to describe it, and Kaizen was developed in Japan after World War II, and it's a daily process which goes beyond just simple productivity improvement. So it humanizes your, most people have a waterfall type methodology of how they go about doing project management. Scrum kind of turns that on its head and does what's called sprints within a project. So instead of doing a waterfall project management approach where there's a start and then the finish is like 18 weeks later, Scrum takes small weekly portions of a project and you don't look beyond that week or 2-week sprint or 3-week sprint. You say, we have a 3-week sprint. Here's the end goal after 3 weeks. And then after that 3 weeks is up, we will reevaluate where the project's at and do another 3-week sprint. And the goal of that is so that you are dividing and conquering based off of what the absolute need is for a given project. It works very well in engineering and product development. It works even better in marketing and business development because you're piecemealing the top priority for your team so that they're focused on one thing and they're solving that problem on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think the Scrum methodology, so I own a web agency and that Scrum methodology works really well for the marketing side of things, but it's actually really difficult to sell that to clients because they can't see, right. They want waterfall. They want, here's the spec, here's what we're going to deliver out at the end of that. But actually for as you say, continuous improvement within your business, you can run Scrum methodology even if you're selling out, waterfall methods to your clients, as it were. So talk me through, something that you're doing at OpenView in terms of content marketing and what that might look like in terms of your backlog or what you're doing at the moment.
Well, we take and I think that everybody's kind of moving this way. OpenView is a venture capital firm, so we invest in expansion stage software companies. So it's a little bit different than like a software company would be selling a product or any normal business because it's more of a brand marketing play. But I think that the rules still apply, and content marketing is going kind of through a renaissance right now because the past 2 or 3 years we've been like, produce as much content as possible. You need to get in front. You need to be the thought leader. And now it's getting to the point where I think it's more hands-on and more assessment and tools that are actually making a difference. And we're trying to be more focused on how do we build assessments around how do you figure out your total market? How do you figure out, how do you build a corporate pitch deck? How do you do these things that most software companies need to do in order to raise money? And the reason we're doing that is because we want to be helpful to that prospect company, which we're trying to target just as much. A manufacturing company might want to target a specific person, whether that's a owner of another company. We want to target early stage CEOs because they will eventually want to raise money from us. So when we talk about backlog, it's very much who are the people we're trying to target? What is the need that we're trying to fill? What are the goals around that? And then what are the tactics or targets? Or what are the tactics that we're using to reach those? The problem with marketing is that people usually do it in the reverse. They start with the tactics and then they try to figure out the goals and then they try to figure out the personas. You should do it the exact opposite way. Our target is a CEO. Our goal is to reach 5,000 CEOs in North America. Our channel is webinar, events, ebooks, all these things, and then SMART goals around each of those to reach that end goal of 5,000 CEOs. So we're trying to flip it on its head again just to say you should start with the end user and then work backward for your goals and then continuous and rapidly improve those goals over a week, month, quarter, year sprints.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds, it sounds like the ideal way to approach things. I know we've talked about on the More Demand podcast before the importance of, creating those buyer personas, and there's a cheat sheet that's available in a previous episode. So I wanted to pick up on a point there that I know on your personal blog, you sort of said death to the ebook, and you'd mention it there again, and rise of these toolkits or assessments or sort of online tools. I mean, what does that look like, and what's the investment difference between, writing an ebook anyone can do, but building a tool or something like that is a bit more difficult? Or what sort of tools have you built at OpenView as well?
Yeah, well, I look to him as a mentor, and Jay Baer is an author, speaker,
Great guy.
Consultant, right? He said this a long time ago. He said your marketing should be so good that people would pay for it. And that is the underlying theme of how content marketing should evolve. I think that marketing in general is going through a renaissance. I think that it's changing rapidly on what people want. I think your customer and the community around your brand is becoming even more important than before. And the top 10 ways to be great accounting firm or blah, 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 blah is just not going to work. So when it comes to new content and the way that it's shifting, it's the idea that you want to be as helpful as possible, right? And tools and assessments help people do their job better. It has nothing to do with selling your brand. I mean, Amex Open Forum is a great example of this, right? It's a community that's about helping small business owners. And the reason why Amex does that is because eventually they want those small business owners to get credit cards for Amex, right? Yeah. But it's created and it's kind of an old idea. It's kind of an old example, but it's created a movement around a community where Amex is almost secondary. And I think we've talked about it for a long time, but it's finally coming to the point where you have to do that as a brand. And smart brands, even small companies of 2, 3, 50, 100 people will start creating, God, I can't talk. We'll start to create communities of their customers. And that's why you see companies like Mighty Bell, which is a mobile community platform. You have companies like G2 Crowd and Trust Radius, which are community rating services for software, are starting to emerge because people are more involved in peer-based marketing than they are actually listening to the brands. I would much rather, it's a very old concept, right? You probably get business by word of mouth, correct? For your website company?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the biggest, probably, to be honest, is word of mouth, sure.
Right, and it's about the people who will pull that word of mouth capital is the companies that are being helpful with their marketing and also creating a great product or service. And if you can do one of those two things or even both, you're going to be successful in any type of environment. Most software companies that are extremely successful are using their product as a go-to-market strategy or as a marketing strategy. If you have a great product, the customers will sell it for you. Right, so content marketing is no longer about let's create a bunch of blog posts and try to be the next thought leader. It's about let's create very specific things. Like for us, it's building a corporate deck or building out a BDR team. Here's an Excel spreadsheet to enter in all of your financial information to figure out how you pay their commission, as an example. We want to be a trusted advisor to these companies so that when they go about raising money, then they are calling us because we've been there from the beginning. And the same thing applies to any type of company.
So becoming a trusted advisor rather than an influencer, as it were, I mean, that's the next step. Is it from becoming an influencer, or do you think there's still a place for the different plays of, sort of thought leadership rather than more on the ground tactics of this is the place you're at? I always call the POD method, problem, obstacle, desire. How are you going to shift them from point A to point B? I suppose that's what the toolkits do more.
Yeah. Well, I think you need a mix of all of it, right? But if you are helpful and you're creating content that's peer-based and you're doing research instead of just this BS of like top 10 ways to be a better blank, you're actually creating research. Like, for example, at ExactTarget, we created what is the best time to send an email for the open rate based off of analysis of 40 billion emails.
Wow.
that's helpful content. And when you have that type of content, you become the thought leader. And then you can, that doesn't mean that influencer marketing is a wrong approach, but that also means that you already have influencers out there. You need to create relationships with them, like Jay Bear, who we both know, right?
Yeah.
You want to create relationships with those influencers. You can't create the influencer within your brand unless you hire them.
So what is you talked about their analysis of 40 billion emails. And
right.
That's great for a company that has that sort of data. Yeah.
Right.
How would you scale that back to a slightly smaller scale and look at the data inside a company and go, actually, we have got data. We just need to bring that out of the back office, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's and when I talk about continuous rapid improvement and marketing is dying and all this really extreme stuff, it goes back to one thing, and that is data management. The biggest issue that marketing has in the next 5 to 10 years is the lack of data management that's happening right now. If you have a bunch of Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets spread out throughout all your computers across all your employees, and you have no idea what customers are doing or how they're communicating or blah, 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 you have no central point of reference where all of your data is, then you are going to lose in the long run because you can't manage that. And as companies grow faster, their ability to manage data on the back end is going to be their competitive advantage. So at ExactTarget, we could analyze 40 billion emails, but it took us forever to get all that data together because it wasn't managed on the back end appropriately. Now that's been fixed, and we were bought by SalesForce, and they're doing amazing. It's a great company, but if they had started when they had created the company, where data management was in front of mind, then it would be a hell of a lot easier, right? When we came around in 2012 and said we really want to do this type of benchmarking. So you could be a transportation company, you could be an accounting firm, a manufacturing, a software company. If you have a bunch of Excel spreadsheets spread everywhere, or if you're still doing paper crap, you're going to lose in the long run because you can't make decisions that way. My favorite quote on the face of the planet is by a guy named David Walmsley, and he was head of retail at the time of Marks and Spencer, and he said, we must move from numbers keeping score to numbers that drive better actions. And you can't have numbers drive better actions for your business if it's all spread everywhere. And so that was a very long way to say, I think marketers' ability to understand the unit economics of business, like what actually drives revenue, and being able to use those in marketing, be able to use customer data in marketing, will go a long way. I mean, if you're an accounting firm and you have 50 customers, and there's some data that you can pull on, like if you have this many employees, this is what you should save from a tax perspective, especially in the United States. That's a great benchmark to use for marketing, because you are a thought leader when you start producing content like that, because nobody else can produce content like that because it's your customers and it's your data. So it's really important that you manage data effectively as well while improving upon your goals.
Yeah, that's, going round in sort of saying, don't regurgitate what's already out there. Everyone's all had the 10 tips to do this, and focus on, even if it's a small data set that you've got, whatever it is, how many, if you're a craft beer creator, even that, you'll have data in there about how many bottles are being processed, what the, environmental impact is. There will be data in your business.
Or when's the best time to drink this beer based off of an analysis of 50 customers.
Oh, I like that.
That's the only thing that makes you different from and this is a huge thing. This is our issue and your issue and everyone's issue. The only thing that makes you different is your story, right? The fact that you have the best beer on the face of the planet, or you were rated something, or you've been around for 50 years, nobody gives a shit. They want to be told a story. They want to know what makes you different from everybody else. And it's not the fact that your beer might taste better. It's the fact that you can produce data and you can produce a story that nobody else is telling. And that's truly the differentiator. And that's the future of branding, in my opinion, is being able to tell that.
We had Ollie Gardner on the show, and he said exactly the same thing. He calls it the gas treatment. Who gives a shit about this? And he asks himself that every time he produces a bit of content or a landing page or an offer, and he just says, give it the gas. And then it's a simple question that, it's just an honest thing. Who will give a shit about this bit of content? And as you say, if you're producing those stories, then that's and data behind it that no one else has got access to, then that's a unique proposition. So what are some of the sort of tools that you mentioned, like bringing all of the data into a single place? What are some of the tools that you might use to do that?
Well, I mean, we use Google Analytics. There's Domo. There is, from a project management perspective, there's Trello. There's a ton of different tools we use. Data, it depends on the amount of data that you're trying to do. Interana is a great company out of San Francisco that does huge data type systems management. But for me, it's, our stack is HubSpot, SalesForce, and HubSpot, SalesForce, and Google Analytics.
Yeah, so I've gone through some of the HubSpot onboarding process, and I understand the software. And that is taking things to the next level, where you can change the call to actions on a site based on user behavior. I've also been inside Infusionsoft and ClickFunnels and all these other tools that are kind of getting there, but HubSpot seems to almost tick all of the boxes. How are you finding using HubSpot? Because I know it's something a lot of people are talking about and mentioning, the inbound methodology, and how's that actually working for you, and what results are you seeing? And could you replicate that on another platform, or do you think HubSpot's actually producing the numbers for you?
Well, we love HubSpot, and in regards to what we do, it works very well. The data side of it is also important to note in this conversation, because if your database, like your Salesforce, if you're using Salesforce for a CRM to manage your customer data, if that process isn't in place and the data is all over the place, HubSpot will break. So it's important that all these processes are built. But HubSpot, we love HubSpot. I think it works extremely well from a workflow perspective to do triggered messaging, to personalized content on your website. Even from a CRM perspective, they have a new sales CRM that you can use. That's kind of like supposed to be a Salesforce replacement. If you are looking to do more intense personalization, like if you're a retailer that wants to send 10,000 personalized emails, I don't think HubSpot's the right tool for you. I think from a small business perspective, HubSpot goes a long way. And I would use it all day long from a small business. If you start getting into mid-sized businesses where you're dealing with thousands of customers, then Marketo is always a better option, in my opinion. We use HubSpot for landing pages, and we have over 100,000 subscribers that we send to, but it's email, right? So it's e-newsletters type stuff. So HubSpot is more than capable of handling that, and we are very happy with them.
Good. Okay, so Marketo is another one that I know from in fact, HubSpot probably takes the top pick in terms of what they're doing themselves for content marketing. But I know Marketo has a ton of definitive guides as well that they've created, and they're all the sort of ebook methods, as it were. But I think they're data driven by their own analysis. So again, they're just unique to them. And if you're regurgitating their data, it's sort of second hand, isn't it? Then.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Marketo is a great. Jason Miller who's now at LinkedIn, is a great example of somebody who's changed the content marketing world, and he did a great job at Marketo. He's doing an even better job at LinkedIn of creating usable content. That is from the databases, that has data to support everything, but is also very helpful. And, I'll read an ebook if it's helpful, but, there's different ways to display content as well, whether that's an infographic or a long form blog post or, or a landing page. I mean, there's tons of different ways to do it now.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the other things that are working for OpenView? I mean, are you, you obviously got this content strategy, you've got a team behind the scenes as well, working hard on the content and creating these tools. How are you then getting that to market? How are you going out and attracting, the top of the sales funnel stuff? How are you getting people into that content?
Well, we have a mixture of ads. We do advertising on LinkedIn, Facebook. We've started to do AdWords. I'm not really sure that that's going to be a play for us, and that doesn't mean that it's not for other companies. It's just that we're a venture capital firm, so it's a little bit different type of market play or go-to-market strategy. We use Opt-in Monster on our website, and it works very well, which is the pop-up that triggers for if people are leaving the site so we can get them in from a subscriber standpoint. Events, webinars work extremely well. We do what's called community calls, which we've just started testing, and that's more of just a conversation. It's like a webinar, but it's not pre-formatted content. It's basically one of our partners talking to a thought leader for 45 minutes and then asking questions. We do a lot of in-person events as well. So it's an all-encompassing brand strategy, but from an online perspective, I don't really have any, and I hate the term, growth hacks. Yeah. Like I think growth hacking is one of the worst things that's ever come out of marketing in general, but we create great content. We send a newsletter that's read, and because of that, it's shared and it spreads. And we consistently have subscribers coming in because we have great organic search based off of great content that we've produced, and we have a good message and a good brand. And we're going through a website redesign right now, and that launches next week. And once that's done, like, we've pretty much have an all-encompassing view or strategy around how we reach people. But you can't growth hack your way to success. I'm sorry. Like, you need to create great content and people will share it, and your product is your differentiator.
Yeah, and that takes time. That's why I keep trying to tell people that are wanting that silver bullet. And it just doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist in tools. You can use Infusionsoft, you can use ClickFunnels, you can use Hubspot. It doesn't matter if you're not feeding the beast. You're not going to get anything out of
Absolutely.
it. So no, that's good sound advice, definitely. And I like the fact that you're doing these community calls, and I haven't heard it called that before, but definitely interested in that, and the webinars as well, and in-person events. So even some of the online content can then obviously come offline and in person, because I had Rand Fishkin on a few months ago now probably, and he said, I just love meeting people for a beer, and having that connection with people. And it is, you sometimes get a little bit sat behind a computer and I'm just pumping out this content. You're not thinking of the person that's actually at the other end, and that's one of those in-person events I think works really well. So talk me through how you migrate people from maybe a Facebook ad to an in-person event.
Well, we actually have an initiative that we started this year, which is really interesting. It's called our Friends of the Firm initiative, and I have a woman on my team that manages the experience of the Friends of the. She's our community manager, and the goal is we train and develop our employees at OpenView to go out and find thought leaders and executives within our network, and actually introduce them to a partner and then bring them into the office. So we have a goal of bringing in 100 people this year to actually sit in meetings and be with us as a firm, whether they're a CEO of a software company or maybe they're on a bunch of boards, and we just want them in our network. And I've actually found that that's been way more powerful to have somebody come in to spend time with us and then leave, and the network effect that happens after they're in the office is, and this is a made up number, but 100 times more effective than Facebook ads, because then they will share our content, and they are a part of the OpenView brand and the OpenView network. And I really think that to be more prescriptive, training your employees to network and bring people in and network outside of your customer base and just try to figure out who are the influencers and meeting them and getting them involved in the conversation can be extremely powerful. And our ability to do that is very much in our processes that we've built around this Friends of the Firm initiative and the goals that we set around it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting tactic, and having that internal, training, as you say, that builds up network, because networking marketing that goes back to having word of mouth, and if you build up your own personal networks as well. I've actually found that employees that get this and that will build their own network, it's so much easier when you want to possibly even shift jobs that you've got an asset there.
Oh man, the best thing in the world, if you want a pinnacle to reach in terms of personal branding, and you can check it off, you should never have to use your resume or search for a job ever again. If you can do that where you are recruited and you are sought after, then you have reached the point where your personal brand is effective and your network is strong enough. If you don't believe that you can do that, you need to do more networking. I mean, every single person in our firm has a goal on networking, on people they have to bring in every quarter. And that instills the idea that you need to build a network, and you need to be able to get to that point where you never have to use your resume ever again.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. So I think we'll sort of bring the show to a close there, because we've covered absolutely loads today. I mean, we've talked about Scrum methodology, about continual improvement. We've then looked at some tools instead of using the ebooks and things like that, thinking about how you can create toolkits. We talked about even what's the best time to drink beer and all that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, that's been an awesome show. So thanks very much for joining us, Kyle. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And that's it for another episode of the More Demand podcast. We'll make sure to see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the More Demand podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and get the latest episode direct to your device every Wednesday.